This video is part 2 of the commentary on the movie Leave the World Behind. And it's picking up where I left off in the first video, so if you have not watched the first video, you will want to watch that before this one. So just showing that there was a cyber attack, and they're showing the static curve. So part 2 of the movie is called The Curve, which is meant to be the curve is meant to represent, as you hear, the static. They've been cut off from being able to do news or anything like that, internet and so on. And I think from the Lord's perspective, this is the similar thing. We can be cut off or have static in being able to hear from God because of different things. I think one of the big things is just having a certain belief about something that we are firm in, and then when other things are presented to us, we can't see past what we believe to be true. Or we read the Bible, and this is a huge one in my opinion. We have a preconceived idea and we read the Bible through that preconceived idea, through that filter, through our theology, which usually is more from what we have learned from churches or different teachings, we books or whatever. We've listened to people and we believe that they know more about this than we do. I mean, I definitely went through this in the first many years of my Christian walk, where I listened to all kinds of books and tapes, and it was really all I did for a while, and just learned all the different doctrines and stuff. Learned a lot of stuff, and then I started seeing that they were conflicting with each other. And bottom line, I realized I needed to really read it and study it for myself rather than listen to what these teachers were telling me. And that's when things really changed, and for me. And yeah. So here you can see the water's getting quite a bit rougher in this picture back here. Okay, so here Amanda wakes up with 4 alerts on her phone that she sees briefly and then they disappear. So the 4 has a lot of meanings in the Bible. A big one, though, was Creation Week and the seasons. Obviously there are 4 seasons, but it literally translates appointed times. And so I'm sure many that are familiar with the book of Daniel and Bible prophecy are familiar with that term, the appointed time. It's used a lot in Daniel to talk about for the end will still be at the appointed time. Here's another place, until the time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. So there are other meanings for the number 4, but I think I am definitely seeing end times type stuff in this movie. So I'm focused more on things related to that. So the number 4 also has a lot of end times and prophetic meaning. So the wheel in the middle of a wheel, there was 4 living creatures. There were the 4 horsemen. The part where the 4 corners of the earth. So those are some other uses of the number 4 in the Bible. But I am drawn to the appointed time and the alerts and the appointed time. I guess there's also, like I mentioned with the clocks, there were also 4 beasts. And in the 4th alert down here, can't really see very well, but it's in a garbled language. So the 4th one is different than the other 3. So it could also be a reference to that, which to me both the 4th beast and the appointed time are both in the same bracket, so to speak. So here she's talking about how the last one said breaking, and then it was just gibberish. So he says he's going to go into town and find somebody that knows more than we do. Find someone that knows what's going on. Just calling out here. Shortly after this, there's a scene where now we've got this picture again that was radio waves and now has turned into chaos, pretty much. They're getting closer to complete chaos. The TV is out. Here's a view from the top down of the lawn chairs outside, the 6 lawn chairs. There are also 6 chairs on the picnic table or whatever, outdoor table that is not shown here. So here's where Rose is starting to see all the deer, which again, earlier in this video I mentioned the deer represent chaos, immorality, and disease. Based on what they actually say the deer, the Mesoamerican omen, according to that, they represent chaos, immorality, and disease. So here's a closer picture of that map in the basement. But note, I just noticed it is upside down. So it's showing the US turned upside down. But again, I think it doesn't just represent the U.S. because you've got the division into 4. So I think it represents the 4 corners of the earth turned upside down. So here they're starting to talk about some of the possibilities of what might be going wrong, and um, they mentioned power plants. So the power plants, hacker, something. They hear it on the TV because Ruth had turned on the TV. So I think here's another spot where that picture is has changed a little bit. Now it's just a little bit different than it was the first time. So here's where they're starting to talk about some of the things that could be going on: terrorism, a bomb. The radio stations and television stations have gone out, but GH is just trying to keep, from one perspective, he's just trying to keep everybody calm. And then the tower falls, Babylon falls. So then they show that GH and his daughter are going to sleep in the basement. So they come down into the basement, and you notice the hue of the room is very. My picture's not great, but it's got a reddish tone to it, and then the carpet is red. And then this picture on the wall, I believe I can't really see it up close and wasn't able to get a very good picture of it, but I think that's showing like the 4 corners of the earth. I know it's just the U.S. in the picture, but I still think that that's what it represents. So here he's again saying, they want to get them out of there, but that they're not going to do that by scaring them. So he doesn't want to scare them. They need to think everything's going to be okay. Here's another place where he's saying there's no point in talking about this until we know more. So this is like the next day, I think. And then here, Clay and Amanda are talking that night. Again, the water's getting a little rougher in the background. Notice, and she's calling out how the girl that she was poking, which I think is an interesting term to use, but she very much some of the things that she does in the movie, false accusations. She's very snarky and definitely just reminds me of the enemy in one of his cohorts, so to speak, and what that behavior would look like, lying and accusing. Later she accuses Clay of wanting to have sex with her when she was clearly the one who was flirting with him. So false accusations and just, yeah. So here they say, why didn't you say anything about what we saw at the beach today, the boat? Again, calling out it was an oil tanker. Why didn't you tell them? And he says, I don't know. It just seemed like it was piling it on. So I think. So here they start talking about their jobs, and Ruth is asking Amanda what she does. She manages client relationships, which, because of her, Ruth is priced here. Ruth's husband is a professor at City College, English and Media Studies. And isn't this some of the first conversations that we always have with people is we identify who you are with what you do, your works. But Ruth here, which, I believe she represents another piece of the dark world, right? And again, I mentioned earlier how she antagonizes the conversations and accuses people of things they didn't do, that type of thing, right? But here, she's calling out how she hasn't decided what she's going to do yet, because if she doesn't want to find herself in the trap of choosing a route and then being trapped by the pressure to stay the course, even if she's decided she doesn't want to do that yet, which is exactly what I believe the system the enemy is set up is designed to do, in a sense. It's to, you're deciding what you're going to do. You end up putting all this time and effort and education into what you decide to do. And then if you changed your mind, you've already invested so much in it. Whereas if you allow the Lord to lead what you're going to do, you won't find yourself in that place. Now here, GH is trying to calm the conversation, but Ruth calls out something very interesting. She says, "You always say," speaking to GH, "if you're not paranoid by now, it's probably too late." I think that's exactly telling. He says, "I'm sure it'll turn out to be a big nothing." He doesn't want anybody to be concerned. So here they're talking about his wife and how she was supposed to be on a plane from Morocco flying to New York, and they don't know for sure where her, if she made it. And he says she's probably cursing out every customer service. And then out of nowhere, Ruth says, "Do you remember a time the three of us went to Italy?" And then I didn't capture it, but he basically says, "What makes you say that?" And she's like, "I don't know. I just don't know what to think about." But I think that is a nod to Italy. We all know who is in Italy. I guess I'm trying not to be too specific about some of these things, but there is a person in Italy who really, according to that religion, that huge religion that is worldwide and has so much corruption that has been brought out in it over the last, I don't know, 20 years or so. But there is a man in that religion who is considered to be Christ on earth. And many people believe that he is one of the three um, end times characters. Anyway, the fact that they make the comment, "Do you remember that time we went to Italy?" I think is related to that. And, there's no more conversation about it, really. It's just that mention. Okay, here Clay is driving to town to get some information. And here's another reference to a GPS signal not found. Okay, so notice on the clock here, it's 12:15, and he keeps, clicking the seek button on the station, see to seek, and they get to 1619 as the only station that will come up. So this is where we're going to go into way deep, and I have to say I'm really blown away. This is something I believe that God has shown me many years ago. And I'm just so surprised, and I have to admit, excited to see the concept in this movie. Anyway, it's confirming, I guess. Definitely confirming. Okay, so for this section, bear with me because there's a bit to cover in order to bring it all together. This is the part where I believe it reveals the Abomination of Desolation and the seventh trumpet and people broken into three groups. So let's start with this. So this picture here is Ruth. This is the scene right before BH arrives at the Huxley house, the house that he went to go visit, to his neighbor's house to find out if they knew anything. So he's doing that. At the same time, Rose and Archie are entering into the little shack in the woods and having a conversation in there. And Clay is driving into town to see if he can find out any information. So those are the three things that are about to happen right after the scene that we're looking at right here. This is where Ruth is entering, and this scene is very strange. It's like totally stands alone in the movie. It doesn't relate to anything in the movie. It's just by itself. This scene that has seemingly nothing to do with anything else. Ruth is entering this dark room with this key, is the key that opens the door. So the number, so there's a number 03 on the key, and then there is, it says Baldwin, and the numbers on the key are 7458 something, and I can't actually read what the last number is, and I don't think there is any view of that last number. I think you only see 7458. Yeah, 7458. So then she enters this dark room, and there's, you can see in this picture, there's a picture on the wall, and then in the reflection you see her getting into a cabinet, getting out her vape, assumably. And there's pictures on the wall, multiple pictures on the wall, including this one, which is just, it's not just a silhouette of a person with black in it. So I don't mean the skin color black. I mean, just, it's like a silhouette with black inside. So here's some more of the pictures that we see. It just looks like family. The rest of it just looks like family members. Here's where you're seeing her from behind, and with the pictures on the wall, and it's just dark in the room. And here she's blowing the big puff of smoke up into the air. So this is what I think that is a picture of, is Ezekiel chapter 8. So starting with verse 9, and he said to me, go in and see the wicked abominations which they're doing there. So I went, this is a vision that Ezekiel is having, and it's described in the book of Ezekiel. Verse 10, so I went in and saw, and there every sort of creeping thing, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed all around on the walls. Each man had a censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. Then he said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the room of his idols? For they say, the Lord does not see us, and the Lord has forsaken the land. So I'm not trying to say that the pictures on the walls, that the people were abominable beasts or anything like that. Obviously, this is not an exact picture, of what the verse is, but the elements of this are there, and especially when particularly the one picture that I showed at the beginning, where it's a silhouette and the person, it's like the soul is black. It's just a silhouette and black. That, out of all of the pictures, is the one that I would say is the abomination, where there's no light left. It's just all black. An abomination can really be, here's the biblical definition of it, a disgusting thing, abomination, often associated with idols. In a ritual sense or an ethical sense, I guess just want to mention it, that it can be a wide range of different things. And as far as idolatry is concerned, that can really be just anything that's coming between you and God, including things like worry and pain, when you are dwelling on something that you are serving, that come between you and God. And then, of course, the dark room, the Ruth is sitting in the chair, it blows up the thick cloud of smoke. And that standing alone might not have meant as much, but when you combine it with what comes next, I believe it is a revelation. So Revelation 16:19 talks about how this is the seventh bowl, and how the great city is divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon was remembered before God to give the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So I believe God showed me that this is actually describing people being divided into three groups. One group is the saved, one group is the unsaved, and one group is like seekers, like the carnal Christian.
are people that are really want to know God, but they have not reached a place of salvation yet. And I think that the next section of the movie is going to show this. The first group shown is is where GH is going to the Huxley house, and that was shown right after the daughter is in the room with the abomination. So I think this is also the unsaved is also the abomination of desolation, where it represents that. So the Huxley house. So here it says Huxley's agnosticism, together with his speculative propensity, made it difficult for him to fully embrace any form of institutionalized religion. So he was claimed to be an agnostic. So definitely not someone who had given his life to Jesus. So we'll skip to he grabs his gun, he goes into the house. Now then they switch to Clay, who has gone to town, and he's seeking. He's looking for somebody that has information. So I believe it's going to show these as the three groups. So Huxley and where GH is the unsaved group, and we'll see a lot more about that. This Clay and what he represents on the fence group, the group that's seeking. And notice, so here, he's the seeker. He on his radio station, it has the seek, which he keeps touching. And then 1619 is what shows up on here. Back to Revelation chapter 16, verse 19, 1619. Now the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon was remembered before God to give her the cup of wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So that's chapter 16, verse 19. And Babylon, we are also about to see a representation of his wrath poured out. Also, which is when he's driving along this road, they show him just looking to the left and looking to the right. And this is where the Spanish woman comes up to him. Oh, here she is. Actually, yes, I have these out of order. So before they go to the Spanish woman, they come back to the Huxley house. And this is the view from above. Just the chaos, desolation. Everything is strewn everywhere, all over the front and the back. When GH comes up to the door, the door is ajar. It's left open. So I know the door, we open doors to the enemy, or we keep them closed. We open the door to the Lord. He knocks on the door and we invite him in. So either way, there's doors. Doors are representative of that picture of letting something bad in or letting in the Lord. And the fact that this door is ajar, a picture of that. Then it goes to Rose and Archie, and they're about to travel to the woods to that shack. So here's GH. So they're showing that the house has already been flooded. So as GH walks in, the ground is flooded. Notice the 6 window panes and just this very strange view of the room looking out. He says he let himself in. Things are knocked over. Notice the footstool knocked over. More pictures on the wall. And so this is the house that I believe is being represented as the unsaved house, that group of the unsaved. Notice the candlesticks. Everything is knocked over, but the candlesticks, that is, the light, the lampstands. The church represents the lampstands in Revelation, and in Zechariah, the lampstands. And notice, I probably already said this, but when we're talking about the three groups, GH is in this group, is part of this group, is at this house. here's Clay looking to the left and to the right. He's seeking. So now we have the humble cabin in the woods. Small, not a rich house, a small, humble cabin in the woods. And if anybody, it's not even a cabin, it's a shack. And if anybody saw the movie The Shack, that's absolutely where I saw this connection to this being a representation of the saved, or those abiding in Jesus, of Jesus, and humble. And the way they represented in the movie, it's like kind of in a mocking way, in a sense, which we'll see later. What is that thing? And then we'll see more on that later. So here GH has opened the garage to find the satellite phone, which which I believe the satellite phone represents prayer, and they'll talk about that more later. But notice how it's out in the garage. It's not used. It's not even it's not inside the house. It's out in the garage. It's not used. So back to Clay. The woman is trying to reach him, and I think, and they don't even show subtitles in the movie, as many people have pointed out. So here's the translation of what she says. She's the only person that mentions God that I can remember anywhere in this movie, and of course they don't put subtitles on it, but so here's the translation though from Spanish. Thank God I found someone. I'm trying to get back to my home. I'm lost. I've been working for a while. I need to use your phone. You're the first person I've seen all day. We have to get out of here. I just saw a plane that was spraying red gas in the vicinity. I saw some deer, more than 50. They were coming out of the woods. Please, I need to go home. A military plane appeared and fled. There's no one around. Is this a chemical attack? So she is the one person who has information, but he isn't listening to her and leaves her there. So he doesn't understand her. Ultimately, here's a scene where they showed GH holding the phone up to try to get a connection, which is the representation of can't connect, of trying to pray, but can't connect with God, can't receive anything. And then so here they've walked up to the shack that I believe represents is the Christian, and he says it's so boring. And on his shirt it says obey, which I know a lot of people have called out that her shirt has NASA on it, and his is obey. But I believe that picture inside the shack is to obey, and NASA representing God in the sense of space, that outside of Earth, So, different ways you can look at the same. So maybe it's just where he sleeps, though. So back to rest. This is a picture of rest. And then he says he says whoever made that impression, he's talking to her about someone who was in here, and they're making it seem creepy and scary, but he says whoever made that impression, and then they look on the ground and there is like an impression of a body, which I believe is like from God's perspective, is like either like the rapture, the dead in Christ shall rise, or the dead in Christ, which I believe is we are dead to our flesh, is what that dead in Christ means. I believe that's what that means. But in this picture, they're clearly trying to show a dead body that was in those leaves. So take your pick. I think it's one of those two. And then he's saying back to him, I don't know where I am. I'm trying to get to town. So he's lost. And later he comes back to the house, he says he was totally lost. So he's lost. So here they're talking about how this person in here is looking up at her through her window, which they're trying to make sound, obviously perverted. But what I believe from, God's perspective is this is like the the parable of the 10 virgins. She's a child, and he's talking about her little lamp on her bedside table. So, for those familiar with that parable, the 10 virgins who were supposed to keep their lamps full while they were waiting for their groom to return. Okay, so now we're back to GH. So again, when they show the 1619 on the radio, they keep just cycling through these three scenes of these three different groups. So here we're back to the house, walked through the house, and now he's in the back. It's a house on the ocean. And he's coming up to an arm under the sand, and he sees the watch. It's a gold watch with 1 o'clock on it.
So here is a short video where they just cycle through the three groups that I want to show. There, right here, they're showing there's there's the other group, and the pouring out, and then the third one, back to the first one, showing the chaos and desolation from above. Second one, pouring out. Third one. There you see, they just keep cycling through these three. So again, a repeat of the verse that I believe this is showing. Revelation chapter 16, verse 19. And the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So this verse, and I do think that the red coming down from the sky is also a picture of that. The cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And the city divided into three parts, again, I believe that's what that is a picture of in the movie. And the three parts are three groups as God sees them. People fall into one of three groups: saved, unsaved, or on the fence, like seeking the Lord, the seeker, in that scenario, seeking but haven't fully come to that place of salvation and really given their life over to God. They have not fully given their life over to God and are walking with Him. And so I also believe during the times to come that those people that haven't fully given their lives over to God, I believe the judgments that begin to happen that so for some the unsaved group, they are judgments, they are the end. And for the saved, I don't I don't believe they will experience those judgments, even if they are. If some believe in the rapture happening before all of that, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, but I don't have a firm position on when I think that happens. But I do believe that if God's saved people are here during the times to come, the tribulation, the judgments, that they are protected. They are under His wing. They are protected. They are like Noah in the ark. And then the other group, that group that is on the fence, I believe those judgments will really be to wake them up, to bring them to a place of salvation. Sometimes we need to be so take sometimes we need to be taken to a place in life where we don't have anything to lose in a sense, or where we can really see the truth about God, about Jesus, and come to many times God brings us to a particular place in our life where we receive Him, where we are seeking Him for answers, where we come to a place of salvation. And that is in His character to leave none behind, to at the very end to be reaching out to people to receive Him, to know Him before it is too late. And I believe that is one of the purposes of the tribulation. So both judgment and for others to repent. So judgment, so I believe it's the tribulation period is judgment for some, for others, a time to wake up and repent. And then others, if they are here, would be saved and protected, and maybe they are the people that are being used to reach those that are lost. So I'm one of those people that hasn't, I don't want to be in a place of putting my foot down on feeling like I fully understand this is how it is exactly going to play out, because I've definitely learned a lot over the years in studying this, and there are certain things I do feel like God has really shown and confirmed, but I want to stay in a place of being willing to see more pieces of the puzzle and not get too dogmatic about what I think or what I think I understand. So, on the topic of the abomination of desolation, I believe that is what this is showing. This scene where the second plane lands, crashes into the ground while GH is running towards the house. They show him run in the door right here, and then the water comes in, breaks through the windows right here, and floods the house. And then when he gets back to the house, they make the point that he's still wet when he after driving all the way back to the house to share with everyone what has just happened. He's still soaking wet, and his daughter mentions that. And then he says he lies and says he fell into the pool right here. And he asks her to go get him a change of clothes. So how many know that whenever frequently you'll watch a movie and somebody gets in the water and they get out of the water and, they're dry already. The movie doesn't usually make a point out of keeping them wet for very long, but in this movie, they make a point that he's still wet when he comes back to the house. Okay, so the abomination of desolation. So I do believe the picture of that house that GH is at with everything strewn everywhere is a picture of that desolation. Um, but so let's look at Daniel chapter 8, verse 13. Um, then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? So in this verse here, the term desolation means the crime causing horror, as noun horror causer, appaller. So in that verse that I just read, the word desolation, see Daniel 8:13, is the crime causing horror. So that is the desolation, the crime causing horror. Okay, and then Daniel chapter 9, verse 20. Well, so this is, in the 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. So that is speaking about Jesus when he was crucified. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, which I believe that is talking about the body is the sanctuary and the city is a group of believers. Or I'm not even so sure that it is believers, if it's just people, but the sanctuary is the temple, which is our bodies. And the end, therefore, shall be with a flood. Remember the flood coming through the windows. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations. So the overspreading of abominations. So one of the ways that this word overspreading interpreted is on the wing of abomination. Um, this is the King James that uses overspreading of abomination. But wing of abomination is it when you say it that way, you can see the plane, right? The plane. Just representing that high above overspreading, obviously more overspreading of the world than of this particular location, but you get the idea. The overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured out upon the desolate. So the desolate in this verse is here, the causer. So the horror causer, the appaller. So it's saying that even until the consummation and that determined. So that determined is like a judgment type of thing, shall be poured out upon the desolate, the causer of horror. So what I see that is, I believe we are approaching the end. I believe that um, the thing that was administered to the entire world, the overspreading of abomination over the entire world, and not just that thing, but all of the other abominations that are going on in our world right now, just violence and just everything that is offensive to God that is going on in our world right now, the overspreading of abomination, but particularly that one thing. So you can see the word consummation means complete destruction, consumption, annihilation, almost always by God. And here's Daniel 9:27 down here, where that word is used. So annihilation by God is what this means. So the overspreading of abomination, he shall make it desolate until the annihilation by God, and that determined shall be poured out on the desolate. Annihilation by God, consummation, should be poured out on the causer of horror, desolate. So again, this word here, desolate, is the causer of horror. So the water, and here you can, I guess I didn't read this part, but it says the end thereof shall be with a flood. So that water that was pouring through the windows and made the desolator, the causer of horror, he's all wet. And then he goes back to the house and they make a point that he's still wet. And I said earlier who I believe that he represents in this movie. So obviously I haven't gone through all of Daniel. There's a whole lot there, and I'm not trying to make this video, too long, and I don't even claim to fully relate to every single verse in here, but I do believe that um, that's what this is talking about. I do believe that the abomination of desolation is the enemy, Satan, uh, and his cohorts um, entering the temple of God, and particularly the way, in a physical sense, here at the end, the way that thing has allowed that to happen in a physical sense, not just through our own choices, but via a physical change to our bodies that give them, I believe, that give the enemy a doorway, a way in. So I can't say that without also saying that I also I also believe that Jesus is above even that. God is above even that. And in Revelation chapter 13, when it's talking about the mark of the beast, it's saying that those who have the mark of the beast go to the lake of fire. However, it doesn't, even God, the mark of the beast, however, the lake of fire if you have the mark of the beast at that point. But nowhere does it say that once you get it, it can't be undone. Once you have the mark of the beast, it can't be undone. And I absolutely believe and I know that this is one thing that God has revealed, that he can undo anything, and he is the maker of the universe. Jesus' death covers our sin, and a person that has received that through, when they fully give their life over to Jesus, that they can receive salvation through fully giving your life over and coming to know him and receiving him and moving forward in him as a believer should, and repenting of taking it, of getting it, um, believing that it was not okay to do, and repenting of doing it, and moving forward in Him and not getting any more of them. I believe salvation absolutely is given to you in that case. But the physical effects of it, that I believe is only through prayer. But I do believe, God can do anything. He created the universe. He can do exceedingly abundantly above all that we think or ask. He can, make the blind see, the deaf hear, raise the dead. He absolutely can rid your body of the effects of that thing. Um, I believe that can only be done through prayer. I mean, I know that there are a lot of things that people are talking about that can be done to help your body if you've received it, and I don't know if how well they work, or if they work. And I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about God Himself can heal a person and undo the effects of that thing, just like He could heal you of cancer or any of those things. Um, will He for everyone in every case? I definitely don't have the answers to when He will and when He won't.
When you look at what Jesus said about the abomination of desolation in Matthew 24, in the scope and the context of the end times, He says, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, which is the temple, which is our bodies, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. And keep in mind, the mountain is Jesus. And that was also revealed in this movie. If you didn't watch part one, it's in part one. Having that, the Antichrist, Jesus, the beast, all of those pieces revealed in this movie that was produced by Barack and Michelle Obama. And I believe that God revealed it. He is revealing it, even in spite of the people that made it. That's how I think about it. It's pretty amazing and telling of the times that we are in. I will be doing a commentary on the second half of the movie, so watch for that.